This is Ryan DeRobertis. In the early 2010s, the small and burgeoning vaporwave community rallied around his music. While releasing an album or remix almost every month, he was quickly evolving from the slowed-down ironic formula developed by artists like Vectroid and One-O-Trix Point Never. He created his own upbeat and danceable take on the vaporwave sound in the subgenre known as future funk. On May 31st, 2013, he released the album that would define future funk, Hit Vibes. With its infectious grooves, it would become a touchstone and template for future music producers. While there were several tracks to choose from, one track came to the forefront. This is the story of Cherry Pepsi. Saint Pepsi started as a project for DeRobertis to work on over winter break from Boston College. He released his first album, Laser Tag Zero, to very little recognition except to a select few who were doing deep dives into the vaporwave tags on Bandcamp. The album was heavily inspired to the point of imitation by Floral Shop. Both albums heavily rely on the aesthetic of Google-translated Japanese for their titles, and a visually busy album cover, with the bust being prominently featured. The track's contents show striking similarities by having slowed-down 70s and 80s pop and funk, chopped and screwed to the point of being avant-garde. Even though it was Saint Pepsi's first album, it wouldn't remain his only one for very long. He would release 3 more albums in quick succession, culminating in World Tour. I did World Tour, and I think of it as the first Saint Pepsi album, because it makes sense next to something like Hit Vibes. It's the same stylistic influences, a lot of funk stuff. I look at it like the episode of SpongeBob where Squidward teaches SpongeBob art, and Squidward says,
"Look at your marble. Visualize the sculpture within."
And that's how I felt listening to old funk songs.
How's this, Squidward?
With World Tour, Saint Pepsi shows the beginnings of his upbeat, funky style that would become his signature. This would also be the first album he would make that would receive recognition outside the vaporwave community. In January 2013, I found a Japanese blog that wrote a really crazy review of World Tour. Basically, the blog was like, we need to watch out for this guy in 2013, because he's making really interesting music. I was so taken aback by that I was like, I better put my all into this. This effort shows in the next 3 projects he would work on. All 3 would show much more experimentation within the already established stylings of vaporwave. Each album shows Saint Pepsi's creativity by making more upbeat, poppy funk tracks and remixes. However, these upbeat tracks would be in the minority compared to the prevalence of slowed-down funk tracks and commercial jingles. But on April 20th, 2013, Saint Pepsi released the track Better, an upbeat banger of a teaser track to show what was to come in the very near future. Hit Vibes marked a turning point in Saint Pepsi's career. Not just musically, but in life as well. I was going through a lot of things at the time, namely dropping out of college and dealing with depression. So Hit Vibes was produced to cope with those feelings. Saint Pepsi very quickly went from being an aspiring political science major to a musician pursuing a dream that he wasn't sure he could fulfill. I was like, well, if I'm gonna spend all this time doing music, then I might as well be really good at it instead of hiding behind an aesthetic. On paper, Hit Vibes has the makings of a standard vaporwave album. Obscure funk songs, chopped and screwed beats, and an album cover with a retro aesthetic. Sonically, though, it was something completely different. It was infectious and danceable. It bridged this gap between the artistic and the commercial under the umbrella of of future funk. Cherry Pepsi is the fourth track on Saint Pepsi's hit Vibes. Like many vaporwave tracks, it has the appearance of just being a chopped up funk song, in this case Sister Sledge's BYOB, even using the song's choral refrain heavily as its own chorus. However, the song has more elements in production than just the sample. What's immediately apparent are the drums added to give the song a more four-on-the-floor type feel. On top of the drums is something more subtle. A picked guitar line was added to reinforce the funky feel of the original samples. With the exception of the chorus, the vocals are not original to BYOB, and are possibly from other songs, advertisements, or sample packs. The sampling, however, shines in its use in the pre-chorus build. The four lead notes that are repeated and built up are actually two notes chopped, sampled, and pitch shifted. With the help of the effects and mixing, it gives the build a sense of seamlessness, as if that's how the sample originally sounded. About 2 weeks after the release of Hit Vibes, Cherry Pepsi came to the forefront with the help of a video. On June 13th, 2013, the music recommendation and fan-made music video channel, David Dean Burkhart, posted their own music video for Cherry Pepsi, a mashup of different Pepsi commercials from the 80s and 90s. It reinforces both the retro and party vibes conveyed in the music. While initially unnoticed for the first year of its upload, over time the video would still show up in YouTube recommendations and steadily gain more and more views. Eventually the video would gain a view count of over 5.5 million. The video would serve as several people's introduction to future funk and vaporwave as a genre, including mine.
It's Saint Pepsi, bitch.
Alright, so this is the part where I get real with you. It was sometime around late 2014, and I was in the middle of a year at college. I had a single bed dorm room that was really a last resort for me. The majority of my time was either spent going to lectures, the college radio station that was nearby, or in my dorm space that was no bigger than a janitorial closet. I didn't have really any friends I could hang out with. I was pursuing a major that was a means to a life I was quickly figuring out I didn't want to live. Then this video came up in my YouTube recommendations. I knew of vaporwave, but only as a meme shared around the internet. I clicked on it out of curiosity and didn't really know I was getting into something that would change my life for the better. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful and even happy. Music hadn't done that to me since the first time I listened to Since I Left You by the Avalanches, and I became obsessed with the album. Well, I eventually had to take a break from college in the middle of the school year due to stress and depression. I still had this album. It was a choose life album in a time where life didn't feel worth living. I still consider it a 10 out of 10 album and one of my favorites. Even though he's going by Skylar Spence now, I can never thank him enough for Hit Vibes. As long as he's making music, I will continue to support any project he puts out. While I understand the problems of making the album more widely available on physical media, I hope to own a copy of it someday. Just preferably from a source that supports the artist. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. This is my first video and I hope you enjoyed it. Check out my Twitter for future updates about more videos, and I also have a Patreon with tiers ranging from access to custom-made playlists, sneak peeks, and having your name in the credits. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. But anyway, I hope to have you as a viewer again soon.